Michael Saylor recently shared a really exciting strategy, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But first, I want to explain to you what's happening right now. And as I've said in previous videos, it's impossible to cover all the Bitcoin and crypto news every day, because there's just too much or too many things happening daily. That's why I summarize it for you like this, and you'll understand why in just a moment. And to be completely honest, I firmly believe that Bitcoin will head toward $500,000 per Bitcoin by the end of this year. Anything else would just be crazy, as if the laws of supply and demand suddenly no longer applied. And in case you missed the last videos, more and more companies are now doing what MicroStrategy has done or is doing. They're following suit and buying up massive amounts of Bitcoin. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but everything is happening at lightning speed right now. MicroStrategy has already accumulated and purchased huge amounts of Bitcoin, and now at least 12 countries and dozens of companies are following their lead. Not just BlackRock and Fidelity, but also firms like Capital 21 and the Blockchain Group. They all have one goal: to buy and hoard Bitcoin. And then we saw that Panama has now introduced a bill to allow citizens to buy, sell, and accept Bitcoin anywhere in the country. And the problem we're facing right now is that the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges is shrinking every day, and that's a clear bull run signal, because fewer coins on the market mean higher prices. But this time it's different. Governments and corporations are buying up Bitcoin on a large scale. Even media companies are jumping on the bandwagon now. They're producing films and news about Bitcoin and reinvesting their revenues directly into more Bitcoin. MicroStrategy remains the pioneer in this regard. They've just invested another $555 million in Bitcoin, buying 6,500 coins. A week later came the next deal, $1.42 billion for 15,355 Bitcoin. And now, shortly after that, came the announcement of another $1.34 billion. It's as if they think we don't notice how they're secretly continuing to buy more and more. It's always the same game. Sometimes they pretend to pause and then, bam, they buy even more Bitcoin. And that's not all. MicroStrategy is also planning to raise $21 billion this year to buy even more Bitcoin, to accumulate even more Bitcoin. And now, just imagine, 5 companies each want to buy 1 million Bitcoin. But there are only about 1 million, or 1.5, or even just 2 million coins left on the exchanges. On top of that, there are the ETFs worldwide, which are also hungry for Bitcoin and want to buy more. And what happens when everything is empty, when the Bitcoin are gone? It feels like we're racing toward a point where there is simply nothing left. And the question isn't if, but when the supply will collapse. And MicroStrategy, they're laughing up their sleeves as they keep snapping up coins. And if you think that's exaggerated, just take a look at the numbers. It's not a coincidence, it's pure mathematics. And Michael Saylor also explains why we have to buy Bitcoin, why we should buy Bitcoin now, and how we can do it. Let's take a look at the video about it. But before we get into that, if you want to achieve financial freedom through Bitcoin and crypto, click the link in the description below the video. Watch the video, it's free. So let's watch Michael Saylor's video now. It's extremely interesting.
You've said that if you want to 10x your money, buy Bitcoin. If you want to 100x your money, buy Bitcoin with someone else's money. And if you want to 1000x your money, then buy Bitcoin with someone else's money and leverage it. But for the average person watching who's probably a wage earner and not a business leader, what do you think is the best way to 100 extra money? Can you still do it with Bitcoin? And what types of strategies can be deployed?
I think the best way to get superior returns, 100x type returns if you're an individual, would be you keep your day job, and so you maximize the cash flow you generate through whatever your profession is. You're responsible with your expenditures. You have to think in the year 2045, I think a Bitcoin is worth $13 million. So every Bitcoin that you don't buy is a $13 million cost. That Ferrari that you're going to buy is going to cost you like 6 Bitcoin. So it's going to be a $100 million Ferrari, right? If you look out 20 years. So you have to keep your job, unless you're insanely rich. Don't splurge on the Ferrari. Buy the 6 Bitcoin instead. And with regard to leverage, the intelligent leverage for the individual is generally typically long-dated, mid-dated mortgage debt. So if I have any kind of property, if I have a house, I would put a long mortgage on it, a 10-year mortgage or a 15 to 20-year mortgage on it, especially a conforming loan. And then I would roll it into Bitcoin because mortgage debt is not mark to market. It's against an asset which is fairly stable. Normally, the interest rates are somewhat subsidized by a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac program or a government program. So it's the cheapest form of permanent capital that someone can get. So, I'll tell you what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't quit your job. You shouldn't splurge on sports cars you can't afford. Don't buy a yacht because it's obscenely expensive, and don't pay off your mortgage yet. Don't become debt-free.
And now just imagine, you really want Bitcoin to succeed. Then you would buy it directly, not through detours and not through BlackRock. And by doing so, you would drive the price up so that everyone can see what's happening. The problem is, many companies don't want you to understand what's actually going on right now. That's why we hear these strange news stories every day while the real developments go unnoticed. We don't hear that 7 million new Bitcoin wallets were activated in Africa this week, or that 2.3 million people in the US have just started buying Bitcoin, or that 5 million people worldwide are creating new wallets every week. No. Instead, all we hear is, BlackRock says Bitcoin will be worth $50 trillion, surpassing the US real estate market. Or MicroStrategy has bought another 14,000 Bitcoin. And you know what? That annoys me, because so many people will later be angry at themselves for not having taken action. We all know that feeling of having missed out, whether it's with stocks or real estate. Everyone thinks, if only I had back then. Just look at the old prices of real estate and stocks. How many of you only got into Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market in recent years? How many of you wish you had bought in 2019 or 2015 when Bitcoin was worth $200 to $400? That's the thing. The opportunity we have today will look in 10 years just like those ridiculous house prices from back then when you could buy houses for $50,000, $75,000, or $100,000, or apartments in cities for $50,000. But most people don't get it because they're looking at the wrong headlines instead of what's really happening. And at some point, that moment comes when you think, if only I had, but then it's too late. But you know what? It's always the same game we experience. But right now, you have exactly the same opportunity right in front of you, and billions of people are ignoring it. Sure, many companies have already figured it out, but most of the world is still asleep. And do you know when they'll wake up? When Bitcoin keeps getting more expensive, so expensive that it will be out of reach for them.
The problem is we are moving toward a digital currency society where cash will gradually be eliminated, either through lack of use or because many countries and governments are actively trying to ban it. So they're putting limits on how much cash you can use. Let's say, for example, $1,000. And if it's more than $1,000, using cash becomes illegal.
And I don't want to scare you or put you under pressure. This is just the reality. Maybe you remember those memes where people complain, oh, if only I had bought a house back in the 90s. Or, why didn't I invest in stocks in the 2000s? Ask yourself, what are you still waiting for now? The opportunity is right in front of you, and the problem is, you want to see results before you take action. But listen to me carefully. MicroStrategy has invested almost $4 billion in Bitcoin over the past 3 weeks. $4 billion in just a few weeks. Or the blockchain group Metaplanet, countries like the USA, Panama, states in the Middle East, major banks like Barclays or the Bank of Montreal. They are all hoarding millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. But what's missing? You are missing. You're constantly being told that Bitcoin could rise to $500,000 per Bitcoin. But instead of taking action, you're waiting for others to prove to you that we can reach that price. But when the train has left the station, you'll wish, or you would have wished, that you had acted now, because you don't know what you have until it's gone. You hear it every day in my videos. Every 24 hours, there's new information that no one else mentions. Millions of new Bitcoin wallets in countries that need it the most. In countries with hyperinflation, people aren't turning to Bitcoin just to save themselves with small amounts. At the same time, corporations and governments are buying Bitcoin because they see the hyperinflation of the dollar coming, or the money printing in China, for example, or in Europe, or the upcoming quantitative easing. And yet, people in the crypto space complain or whine the price hasn't gone up. We still haven't reached an all-time high. There's another bear market. But when Bitcoin is at $500,000 per Bitcoin, then people say, now I'll start buying regularly. So what are you actually waiting for now? And that applies to everything in life. If you want something, just do it. If you want to achieve financial freedom through crypto and Bitcoin, click the link in the description below the video. Years ago, I tried to time the market. For example, a friend said, Bitcoin is at $25,000 per Bitcoin. If Bitcoin drops to $15,000 per Bitcoin, then I'll buy. Instead, Bitcoin rose to $38,000, $42,000, $56,000 per Bitcoin. Now, the same experts who predicted a crash to $28,000 per Bitcoin or to $12,000 are now talking about $50,000 per Bitcoin. And then most people wait for this magic number and miss the boat. MicroStrategy is on its way to owning 1 million Bitcoin, and we're not even halfway through the year. By December, they will manage it, just like BlackRock and other corporations, to reach $1 million per Bitcoin. And I really hope that you've been paying attention over the past few years, because if all this information still hasn't made things click for you, then the problem isn't with the facts. And I wish you all the best, that you are successful and can achieve financial freedom through Bitcoin and crypto. I wish you a wonderful day.